if you're allowed to do utility tokens as a company, you can better treat your customers. You can have people that purchase your token and who believe in what you're doing as a company, and they don't gain ownership of your company. The value of the token becomes linked to the value of your company. And so if you're kind of being not good with your customers, or you're doing stupid stuff, or you're not turning out good products, or you're not turning out anything anybody wants, people aren't going to buy your token. Its values and that lack of volume of purchase is going to drive the value down. And so then you feel that right away. And you say, oh, we got to make some changes here. And you got to figure out what's wrong. And because, though, there isn't that immediate ownership by the stakeholders, as a founder of a company, you're given wide latitude to try to make it work long term. You don't have to say, oh, the investors are telling me I've got to manage to the quarter and I have a fiduciary responsibility. You don't have to do any of that. Now, what guarantees do they have then that their purchases are protected? Well, if you as a founder own a certain amount of tokens, you are not going to be able to cash those in if their value goes to zero. So you have an incentive for those token values to stay up. You have an incentive to not dilute them. You have an incentive to add value to your company so the token becomes more valuable rather than less. And you also have an incentive to make sure those tokens hold value or become more valuable in order to meet the requirements of not defrauding those who've purchased those tokens. That gets you in trouble with Consumer Financial Protection Bureau especially if you do it intentionally. If you intentionally, and that's kind of relates to credit card points. Now, it's different if, there's something inadvertent or you couldn't control it. That's different. But if you were to intentionally make your value go down, that's like a credit card company saying that their points suddenly can't buy what they say they can. And you get in trouble for doing that kind of stuff. So now if it's something you can't control, that's different, but you want trust in your coin or in your token that you're offering. You want to be a reputable business, and you kind of have to control how much you're minting and how much you're putting into the system, because you've got to know what your outstanding liabilities are. And if your customers can use your utility token to purchase your goods or services, then that's outstanding liability. So you kind of need to know where you stand on things. And to do that, you kind of need to know, how many outstanding tokens do we have? How many do we hold in our hand right now? And so there's some real incentive there for the founders to try to keep those token values up, and to do that by managing the company well. So this is different, though, than where you have stockholders, because you're not promising anything. You're not promising them that they're going to get dividends if they buy your token. You're not promising people that they own anything in your company at all. You're not promising them anything. And you say, oh, that's scary for the person. Well, we already kind of talked about how a lot of people who think having a board member on a publicly traded company are protecting their investment. That's not a direct correlation anymore, especially if it's a technology company. If you've got someone sitting on the board that's not a technology person, they may not be helping steer that company and protecting your investment as well as you think it is. So I'm not really sure that you're necessarily any worse off not holding an equity position in the company, but just owning that company's token. Look at, especially if they're posting stuff on their website and they're pretty transparent and they're giving out good information, and you look at them as a company and say they're growing, they're treating people well, they're putting out a good product. I think there's ways that you can find out if they're a company that you want to buy a token in. And typically, you're probably going to buy a token in a company that you want their goods and services, or you think you do. And then if you just, and the great thing about a utility token is if you say, well, we were going to buy their goods and services, then we found out we no longer have the need, so we're going to sell our tokens to somebody who does have a need for their goods and services. So there's definitely some aspects there that are really, really handy. They're different than a typical publicly held company. And so companies can get some funding then to bring their products to market or their services to market without all of the negative things that we see that come from publicly traded companies, because they can then, they don't have that stress, that quarterly stress. They can manage themselves and say, we're planning 5 years out, 10 years out, 25 years out. We're going to do things that are healthy for this company. And if that upsets people, we're not beholden to that. We can do that. We can treat our employees well. We can, take when the business cycle turns down, we can keep people on because they're valuable to the long-term plan. And we don't have to meet some arbitrary fiduciary responsibility to a bunch of people that aren't contributing to the day-to-day anyway. And so there's some real advantages there to the health of the business, to the way the employees are treated, and to the type of product that the customer gets. It actually makes for a stronger company if done right. Now, can it be messed up? And oh yeah, it can be. But it has some real potential to provide our country with stronger companies. And also in this time period where there's been all this talk about, we need, startups, and we need these companies to go into these particular fields and accomplish stuff. If you run a lot of startups, this would be a way to help do that. If you've got utility tokens, they're going to be ones that crash and burn. There will be. And so it's going to be on the purchasers, the customers, the people that are interested in that company to say, what kind of information can they supply me? Are they legit? Is this going to work?